J Squad.
We gotta find now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the program. Find who's find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the program. Find who's find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the program. Find who's find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue.
Test.
Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the program. Find who's find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the program. Find who's find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find the program. Find who's find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue. Find the program. Find who's find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? Another day, another day. Hey, calm down, calm down. You're going a little early. But how's everyone doing out there tonight? Oh, had a little good weekend. Today was an off day for me too, with federal holidays and all that. But we're back at it and going to do a little catch up over the weekend. Good. I'm glad you've been doing good, Red Stain. Good to see you as always. So we're gonna catch up. I was gonna watch the Endymion video, but I was so tired. What was it, Friday night? That I was just easily distracted. Grizzle came on, distracted me more. So we're gonna watch that one tonight, and then I got a few other videos and an article, which I actually might read the article first. By friend of the channel, Sigma. He's our more right than me right winger, we'll say. Let me get over here. Boom, boom, boom. He made an article. Oh, wrong one. Wrong scene. We're going to reading today. Endymion and the slop grifting. I think it'll fit in with what's been going on. He talks about Asmongold, and we'll see how much I agree with him. Usually there's some things that I agree with when it comes to Sigma, and then usually there's things that I don't agree with. Or the Egg Dad is what I'm guessing. Decepticon officer, ex anti commander, ex backstabber, rusted joints, full ashtray, no regrets. D me about Megatron. So yeah, the Egghead. I'll have to ask him how it's pronounced one time. Like I said, I usually have some agreements and some not with him. So we'll see what he says on here. I think he's a little bit more conspiratorial than I am. He had another one he wanted me to watch some stuff on, but I'm going to check that out and maybe do it on Wednesday, as well as see what else we can find, because I have not been involved at all this weekend online. So let's see here. Before I talk about Endymion, which all this is about Ghosts of Yotei, I want to start with what got me thinking about this topic in the first place. A few days ago, Twitch streamer Asmongold posted this. Because Ghosts of Yotei has been conscripted into the culture war, it seems people are attacking and defending it based on the side they're on rather than on the merits of the game. Tiresome, exhausting, especially when the majority of the controversy isn't even from the game. Proper drama Monday. Yes, that's right. Proper drama. I think I'm going to get back to my drama roots. I was actually hearing someone talk about growth and things like that of channels. And of course, I want to grow my channel. And they said when you do a video game channel, a video game stream on top of your normal content, it can actually kill you in the algorithm. So what I'm thinking of doing is starting another channel up and make that my gaming channel. I'll do my, finding the woke stuff. When I finish up games, I'll play games that way and then go from there. I legit think every single one of them that said they needed to take a break should have, by the way. Oh yeah, probably. Let's see here. I mean, it's been insane how Ghost of Yotei outrage kind of died down. Well, it wasn't getting what they were expecting it to, right? I think they realized the game did well, so now it's silent mode. Noticed a lot of them say they would and came back a day later for more unstable. Like Zach said he would but just so it's a thing that people just say, like no one really leaves. They're addicted to this kind of stuff, right? So it just kind of goes that way. Drama is addicting. I can't lie about that. That's part of what drew me to being the drama channel that I am. I like playing games. I like playing games while I watch drama and slop. But I mean, it's interesting subject, right? And I like giving my 2 cents about it. So we have Zach, this insane comment from Asmongold, which is just like he's the king of the culture war right now. Everybody is sucking up to him in the culture war. Everybody is adding him. We've seen where nobody is posting Smash TV's videos into the Reddit just so they can get what they need. What's going on, Simon? You haven't missed much. We just started. We're going over Sigma's article here on Endymion TV and the Slop YouTuber, and we just stopped at Asmongold's comment. So it's like with this comment, he's trying to make himself sound like he's not part of the culture war, right? When he clearly is. He's dipped into politics. He's been in the culture war, right? Now, usually he kind of skidded the line, and this is him trying to like take it back, like almost a true sense of fence sitting on it, because he got what he got. I remember seeing where he got some flack because he was playing the game and he made a completely opposite comment to what he had talked about earlier with Culture War Slop. I don't remember the exact one, but we may have to look it up again. Oh, really, Zach? Is the Culture War lens somehow illegitimate in this particular case? His post is emblematic of the broader collapse in online discourse. Asmongold, who has spent years commenting on out-of-game controversies in identity politics, has, in this moment at least, casually pivoted to gatekeeping the current online criticism of Ghosts of Yotei. Is this amnesia? No, this is a popular internet personality focused entirely on audience capture. I definitely agree with that, and I think he doesn't want to talk about it because he likes the game. Who now requires the audience to forget everything he has ever said for just a few moments so that he can distance himself from an unstable narrative. The dishonesty surrounding Ghosts of Yotei from both defenders and detractors is so pervasive and performative as to defy absurdity. I can agree with this on a lot of cases. I would put myself in the defenders bracket, but the problem is what I feel like I'm defending is specifically their use of numbers. Like, I'm not going in and saying the game is good. I'm giving my opinions of what I've seen, but in the end, I haven't played the game, so I can't make a definitive choice on if the game is good, on the story is good. I can just talk about what other people have said, like we went over Skill Up's video. But yeah, I mean, it's just like any of these game wars in general. It just feels like this one is more so because I think there's more people that like this game. Now let's get to Endymion TV and surface level anti-woke branding. The hubbub about Ghosts of Yotei has given me a grand opportunity to rehash some things about YouTuber Endymion TV. If you ever wondered how the culture war became a content farm, you need to look no further than Endymion. He is the largest of the culture war guys, right? He's bigger than all of them. He's not just a symptom, he's a blueprint. Oh, I could see that. Ostensibly, Endymion, like Asmon, is on my side of the culture war. He says a lot of things I agree with. He calls out woke media and uses a lot of the right words and phrases. This is something that I've said over and over and over again. I personally think being audience captured is bad. I agree. Well, like, it's one thing to be like parasocial a little bit with your audience and things like that. And, you know, your audience is generally going to have similar opinions on it, but you still need to have your own opinion, even if your audience disagrees with it, right? Just think things need to rewind back to just good old writing and add in to not make assumptions. But yeah, awesome you're reading this. I appreciate that guy's writing. To be fair, our government is audience. Yeah, it is. It's very much we're in an age of personalities where people are worshiping people based off of their media profiles, not based off of any kind of actual beliefs inside of them. Because if you look down deep and around a lot of the personalities out there, especially political officials, most of them have done like heinous shit and gotten away with it. So he says stuff that the right words and phrases. This is something I've been saying for a while. A lot of it is just using the right words and phrases. But here's the thing about grift. Just because you know the word doesn't mean that you know what they mean. Just because you can mimic what a side says doesn't mean you're an expert on what that side is about. True. Endymion's content often suggests lying is fine as long as it serves the anti-woke narrative. This is something he holds in common with Smash JT. The problem with lying is that the lies eventually catch up to you, and what is intended to make your side look like it is winning turns into ammunition for your opponent. Ultimately, if you're caught lying, You've given them proof that your side is unserious, sloppy, and easy to dismantle. Yep, this is kind of what changed me in the anti-woke side, like me starting to look deeper into it and seeing the dishonest things. Like there are things that I will absolutely say uh, that is that like I do agree that there are some things that you can consider woke and things like that. I guarantee me and Sigma would agree very differently on what you would consider woke. Because he would consider a game like Ghosts of Yotei woke, where I don't think I would consider it woke, right? I think it's something that's been in our culture forever. And I don't know. The problem with the definition of woke is it can have a lot of different meanings for a lot of different people. Um, How do you defend someone who lies without furthering their lies? This is why I wrote an article about lying to fuel your culture war gains. Lying only works when your enemies are stupid. And granted, many of them, but not all of them are. Many of our enemies are good at lying. I always hate this like idea of enemies. I get it. They're like you can get into some of the other stuff for it, uh, but just calling people enemies, it's a little over the top to me. So beware of yellow journalism and misinformation where people want to farm outrage instead of having good discourse. Yeah, I agree. I like finding good discourse with people who have different opinions with me. What's funny is when it comes to like Sigma, I've had some of my more woke uh, fans or my woke community actually come in and defend even Sigma against a bigger woke YouTuber who was, kind of talking back and forth. Now, at the same time, Simon, who was one of the ones in there, was arguing with him on the truth and stuff. He sided with the other YouTuber, but ultimately, what it comes down to is being able to separate that and say, hey, yeah, this guy disagrees with me. Let's talk about it and see what discourse we can get. And sometimes that means calling each other slurs or, yelling at each other, but you still have to put that away at the end of the day and come back and talk about it again. How do you defend someone that lies about their thing? And granted, many of them, but not all of them, many of our enemies are good at lying, which is why I can understand it is tempting to manufacture lies in return. You won't beat the devil at his own game. There's always a bigger fish. Even though it shouldn't matter, but it's worse when, like Yotei and them ramming the word lesbian into the discourse stream when it has nothing to do with it. Yeah, even then they should yeah, even then they're the bigger fish in the sea. I mean that's been around since before Star Wars, buddy, but yes, I get it. There's always a bigger fish. It's and that's the thing, like I think Yotei, it was one thing when it was Assassin's Creed, right? So we have like the easy, medium difficulty and hard difficulty of the anti-woke movement, right? Easy was Veilguard. Veilguard was easy to call woke because there were so many things. Like it's the best example of what I would call a woke game, right? A game that was specifically changed for, I think, the wrong type of agendas. There are people who disagree with me, but that's what I say. Then you get to Assassin's Creed. We're going to call this one the medium difficulty because there are things in it that could seem like they're woke. The discourse about Yasuke and things like that. Veilguard was like a parody. But when you really break down Assassin's Creed Shadows, I don't think it was really all that woke. In fact, I think some of the things that the anti-wokers were doing around that game were actually woke, like feeling bad for the Japanese people, calling a bunch of shrines because you could break shrines in the game. These were all like what I would consider, this is all stuff that I would see a SJW or extremely progressive woke group doing to shut down a game. But no, the anti-woke were doing it. It was just hilarious. So I think that's where a lot of the anti-wokers, it started to crumble for some of them, because it ultimately made sales no matter how many times they said it was a failure. I agree. Yeah, I didn't agree with Sigma's take when he was arguing with Ant. Just because him and I threw insults at one another, I don't hold anything against him. Yeah, I mean, it's part of it. It's part of it. Uh, I'm glad Sigma stuck around, because I was thinking after watching that engagement with y'all, I was like, he may be out of my Discord before long, but he stayed and he still comes in. So there's always a bigger fish. And then hard mode, we would definitely say hard mode is Yotei, where there's too much positive discourse around this game. The only thing, I mean, they've been pumping up that it's woke because of a woman. Uh, and all this other stuff, and then they've lied uh, about the lesbian thing. They've taken statistics and twisted them around and easily been pushed back. And I really feel like this is hard mode for them. This is them just trying to push through, and they think that they can say anything's woke and people will believe it. I just don't think that's the case with this one. Grift isn't just a problem because it's dishonest. It's a problem because it's strategically suicidal. It turns your allies into liabilities and hands your enemies the moral high ground because they can legitimately say, we didn't fall for that. Much of what I'm about to cover here, I also cover in 2 videos I made about 9 months ago. Nice. Endymion presents himself as anti-woke, using titles and thumbnails saturated with tribal buzzwords to trigger algorithmic engagement, such like "they are dying" and "dead as hell" and "buy the slop" and "eat the slop," I'm assuming is what he's saying. The last 2 are ironic considering the clickbait nature of these very thumbnails. I wish John would get on stream one day. John, which John? Because he's such a character, bar his past sins. I mean, hey, I've had my disagreements with Ant in the past, and I hated the guy for the longest time until recently, and chances are I'll have disagreements with him in the future. Yeah, I'm probably gonna end up watching more Ant content around here. Oh, Della Rose. Yeah, he Della Rose is a character one way or the other. It's very rare that I think I've ever heard something that he said that I really agree with, but I'll say this, he stands by his guns on what he believes in. This content is optimized for search engines and low attention span viewers who rarely watch past the first few minutes. The early portions of his videos serve as affirmation bias loops, which are designed to reinforce pre-existing beliefs rather than challenge or inform. So yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to capture the audience long enough to be able to get that ad revenue. And I think a lot of what the anti-woke actually say, whether you want to believe, whether you say they're, uh, whether you say that they're grifters, which I've already said that I don't know that I fully agree with that message, or whether you say that they do believe in what they're saying, a lot of the times they do start out by immediately poisoning the well before they start off the talk. They want you to be in the mindset that what they're about to say is bad, so that they're not looking for the truth, right? It's a tactic that a lot of people will use before they start actually talking about a subject, instead of just getting into the subject. Ad copy disguised as commentary. Much of Indy's rhetoric mimics corporate ad copy. I talk about this in my commentary about discussion on the upcoming Star Wars Eclipse. I actually need to look into that, but I've kind of been so dead on Star Wars Eclipse mission in 2025. That was the game, wasn't it? Hold on, because oh yeah, that we never got anything for. When was it? 2022. God. Oh my goodness. Oh, it was the Detroit Become Humans dev team. I was so I was so kind of dead on Star Wars at that point. There were some that I was watching, but I was just kind of like out of it. I was watching stuff with my daughter that was like older. All right. His praise for the game's villain and narrative structure feels rehearsed and suspiciously promotional, possibly part of a paid or incentivized campaign. That's a pretty big leap, I would have to say. The reason for this is if he is getting paid by anybody, he has to disclose that somewhere. That's like federally illegal for him to do. Well, he's in what, Canada? I don't know what the laws are in Canada. Andor's peak though. I know you keep trying to talk me into watching Andor. We'll have to do like a group sit down and watch Andor. Just know that I can yap during a movie too. So repetition of phases like I was told from my sources creates a Fall insider tone that mimics marketing tactics rather than genuine critique. Yeah, I could actually see that with the way he talks about it, because he wants you to believe there is this thing, the anti-wokes want you to believe that they have sources. This is everything that every one of these anti-woke groups do. We kind of went over the part, we didn't go over the article itself, but we talked about like that part place, which uses a lot of these from my sources, but then the only thing they source is like a 10,000 follower X account that's actually an AI slop artist. So like right now your thing is trust me bro, and this account said this, and this account is shit considering you were just saying that. I was looking forward to a Detroit style Star Wars game. I like playing interactive movie games when I want a more chill, laid back experience. Yeah, I can see that. It depends. If it's a good story, man, I get into it. Sources and insiders are their biggest talking point. And as we've seen with Smash JT, we can't trust. I mean, here's the thing with like any YouTuber. You can't just trust that they have these insiders or they're getting this information and things like that. They have to prove themselves in that way. And with like Smash JT getting caught not sourcing his things, no one should listen to him anytime he says he has sources, because he's fucked that up. He denied he's not even really apologized for it. He's not said how he's changing his channel. And you shouldn't believe it with people like Endymion either, because if you look through their channel, there's tons of content that was just put out. Oh, this game looks like it might be woke, and then you never hear anything again. Let's go. Let's see. Endymion TV. Don't forget it. The game industry is losing itself. Oh, they hate this. I saw an article. I don't know how much it's true, but I guess a game developer came out and said the reason they dropped it is because of the discourse around Assassin's Creed Shadows. So the reason we didn't get the right to go around killing KKK members was because they were upset about it, which tells me that they were probably thinking of black protagonists too. And then just random dead things. They did this Saudi Arabia EA buyout. The woke movement is over. People really don't know this with the Saudi Arabia thing. Like they really don't. Some games that they've called slop or woke, Saudi Arabia had influence over the company. Eat the Slop, Evil Liars, They Did What, Nintendo Burning Down. You never hear anything else about it. Stop Being Poor, Big Fat Liars. I mean, there's like Hollow Knight, Silksong proves, like, what is this? Proved what? It proved that indies can make money. Truth versus this. See, this one kind of died off quickly with the show versus everything else. They hurt their thumbnails. But you see, he's clearly making money, though he didn't make money off of the Visa MasterCard stuff. He's still pulling in at least 100K. Now, I think that's less than what he used to from back in the day, but he's clearly still making it. His growth is more balanced than, say, someone like Smash JT, who has been seeing a lot of downtime. I'm not watching that right now. So, yeah. While Endymion positions himself as a fighter against wokeness and a voice for the anti-DEI crowd, one questions whether he even knows what he is fighting against. In his Starfield commentary, he praises the game for limiting options to he, she, and they, calling it the logical point. But here's the contradiction. He accepts they, them as valid, even while posturing against neo-pronouns. Yeah, I could say, has he... I'd have to go look through his stuff to see where he's contradicted himself here. So is he saying the logical point? Because one thing Endymion says a lot is because of course they did and stuff like that. So that would be a video I'd have to look up to completely know. Taxis does they them for the MC. And here's the thing, like I get it. I'm not particularly in agreement with most trans stuff, but to me, something like they, them isn't really a bother to me. I don't care that there's more options in the game. 0 days since Simon brings up Rev in the chat. Rev's growth has also been plateauing since he couldn't seem to break past 750K sub mark and only gets up to 100K views on most of his uploads. Only 100K with 750? Whoo, that's not good. That's not good at all. What this tells me is that Endymion knows his audience dislikes pronoun discourse, so he mimics that discomfort. It's the same rhetorical move he made in his Star Wars Eclipse coverage. Signal tribal resistance, repeat emotional charged phrases, and avoid actual analysis. So he doesn't understand the discourse, he just knows how to perform the opposition. Endymion exploits NPC-like tribal behavior, feeding viewers emotionally discharged mantras including diversity, gender identity, Kathleen Kennedy, and Disney. He repeats words, names, and phrases without substantive analysis, creating a feedback loop of outrage and tribal validation. This is why I suspect Endymion is still involved in marketing these products to you, albeit from an angle of negative marketing in its most cynical form. The media being attacked is still the center of attention. The outrage keeps viewers emotionally tethered to the product. They're angry, sure, but they're still engaged. And then comes the contradiction. Viewers are told to vote with their wallets while being fed a steady stream of content that keeps them in the loop, watching trailers, dissecting leaks, and reacting to every update. This isn't just theory, it's a documented tactic. As Heels versus Babyface pointed out about the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, Ian McGregor was obliged to record a video from his car condemning racist messages directed at co-star Moses Ingram. In the video, McGregor said, "You're no Star Wars fan in my mind to those sending hate." But here's the trick. The video wasn't just McGregor moralizing. It was a marketing maneuver. The moment McGregor made the statement, the content machine spun up. YouTubers reacted. Fans debated. Outrage was monetized. And suddenly, Obi-Wan Kenobi was back in the spotlight. Not because of its story or craft, but because of online tribal conflict. So basically, what I think you're getting at here is that Endymion and the rest of them are just straight up feeding the success of these shows. Is that what we're getting? I mean, yeah, I can see it, because if a movie star does something like that, people are going to make videos on it. Yeah, I agreed. Outrage sells. And it brings people back into the limelight, and I'm sure there are people who may go watch it based off of that. I would like to see numbers on how effective that is, versus just what it brings in. Let's see what it brings in initially. We see this with people on Twitter all the time. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you'll see YouTubers and Twitter people and things like that spark outrage just to try and get their name in it because they're not, their channel's not doing well or whatever. So they'll say something out of pocket. The best example is, oh God, what's her fucking name? The F slur lady, broke ass, ass broke bitch who husband left her. Melanie Mack. There we go. There we go. Yeah, it does have its limits. Melanie Mack. And Melanie Mack's a good example of the limits. She only lives on the idea of saying the F slur and getting banned and then brought back, right? She knows she's going to get banned. She knows she's going to get her channel back, but she says the F slur hoping that someone will, talk about it. And I mean, it's just kind of become she's irrelevant now. It bites itself off. Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, Simon. Let's be real. Everyone says shit for attention, even if it's just for fun. Agreed. I mean, if you're going on social media to chat and grow and do things like that, you're doing it because you want to be seen, right? It's my argument with people calling me what is it? What was it? A clout goblin or clout chaser or whatever they want to call me. Well, everyone on the internet that's doing some kind of content creation. What actually makes someone a clout goblin or something like that, and the direct term of it would be that they're suckling off the tit of a larger YouTuber to try and get some numbers, right? This is What is SlopTube? I am SlopTube. Endymion leans heavily on anonymous sources to build credibility, often repeating vague claims without verification. Let me repeat, this tactic mirrors other YouTubers like SmashJT, who uses parasocial trust and unverifiable scoops to maintain audience loyalty. The illusion of insider access is used to deliver hopium and copium, good way to use that, reassuring viewers that change is coming if they just keep consuming. Yeah, how many times have they said that we've won now, and then there's another outrage that comes out that they're trying to take it away. Like even this year, they've said it's like the worst, year for woke games and stuff like that, but it's been like a banger after banger for games. This is part of a broader phenomenon, SlopTube. Creators perpetuate culture war conflict for clicks rather than resolution. They don't adhere to any consistent axioms or standards. Instead, they're reactive, optimistic, and ultimately insincere. The real danger here, which is apparent everywhere, is the erosion of civil discourse, the normalization of tribalism, and the Comdification? That I don't word. Hold on. That word. He's smarter than me. He says big words that I don't know.
Commodification.
Commodification. The action or process of treating something as a mere commodity. Good word. Good word. Of outrage. I hate almost all mainstream content on YouTube. The entire platform thrives on algorithmic, engineered content that is far from meaningful, researched, or critically thought about. This is also why, even though Endymion is ostensibly on my side of the culture war, I feel the need to critique his content for what it is: grift SlopTube. Endymion, God, it's so hard to say with Endymion. Like, I believe he could be considered a grifter. He repeats the same stuff over and over again. The stuff that I've seen him in when he goes into like these 9-man hug boxes, he doesn't really say much about it. He's tried to stream on his own, but I don't know if he's still doing it. This article is speaking facts. Yes, like I said, Sigma I disagree with a lot of the stuff, and probably when it comes to woke and things like that, but he at least thinks about the stuff that he's saying, right? Another tactic, performative content disguised as an insider. Another tactic Endymion TV regularly employs looks so like so many others in the content mill is leveraging Steam rankings and metrics. Oh God, I hate this. As if they're definitive indicators of culture victory. I've criticized the same superficial methodology in the work of Dr. Disaster. I've never really watched that guy. That may be one I need to look at too. The issue isn't the numbers themselves, it's the culture war framing layered on top, which was designed to make you feel like your side is winning. There's no reflection on how volatile or context dependent these figures actually are. They're presented without nuance as hard proof of success or failure, when in reality, they're just snapshots in a constantly shifting landscape. This is true. Like when it comes to success of a video game, there are so many different factors that come into it. Like I've seen a lot of people like trying to push Nintendo game success on Ghost of Yotei not making a lot, but then like it's you can't compare those two things. Shadows showed this. Yeah, they definitely did. Like you can't compare Nintendo with a flagship game coming out to um, Sucker Punch, a much smaller studio, putting out the second in their series, right? It's they have some bangers, but they don't have the big following. They just have the backing of Sony, which is huge, but it's still just one dev team in the slog of Sony. Yeah, success for any form of media for that matter. Right. It could depend. Like when I looked back at I've said this before, but I'm going to repeat it again. When I looked back at the numbers for Dustborn for a one-time company have putting out a game, I think it did relatively well. It sold quite a few copies and most of the reviews are positive. So you can't just go by the number of players in the game. It's a 20-hour 15-hour single player game with no real playability in it. I don't even know if it has separate endings. Oh, yeah, some projects tend to be unknown for years. Yeah, that's true, and then come out of the woodworks to become successful games in their own right. For Endymion, he references conflicting data, refund rumors versus top seller statistics, without investigating or verifying. For instance, he compared Indiana Jones reported 4 million copies sold to Steam, estimated 36,000 units, implying that Game Pass downloads were inflating the numbers. Yet he fails to apply the same scrutiny to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, treating metrics as definitive proof of success or failure. Right. It's the context. Context is king when it comes to all of it. Like nobody knew Tolkien or Lord of the Rings until long after his death and the movies came out. The greater audience, yes, I think he was still fairly well known. His influence was seen more than himself, right? Orcs and all the other mess, D&D becoming popular, things like that is what I think helped bring Tolkien into the mainstream, we'll say. Treating metrics as definitive proof of success or failure. There's a reason the anti-woke grift relies so heavily on metrics, leaks, and sock puppet insiders. It's because it refuses to subside on moral argument alone. If these grifters actually knew, believed in, or utilized moral argument, they would win every time. As a Christian, I see the widening disparity between men and women, and I recognize how certain video games exploit that tension. Ghost of Yotei, for example, presents a scrawny Japanese woman fighting full-grown men in what's most certainly framed as an empowerment fantasy. Beneath the revenge plot is the inversive of moral order disguised as progress. I'd have to play the game. This is where I start to disagree with him on many takes. Excuse me. I mean, from what I've heard of Ghost of Yotai's story, it's not a new story. And when it comes to like the women, It's the first game had strong women, right? So I don't know that I would agree with this. There's plenty of stories out there, even from back in the day, 90s, 2000s, all of that, that had women being strong characters. It's only recently, when it's all gotten online, that it's become very, very criticized. And some of them were criticized. Like G.I. Jane, you can think of one that was very much criticized. Oh, sorry. I was trying to drink. My throat's a little scratchy. Oh, man. I think I'm getting sick. Thank you. I know, another can't go a channel without me muting myself. Red Stain says, my dad says that some men that hate or dislike women are either insecure or in the closet. Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong. Different people have different personalities, and that's kind of what I hate on this thing. There are a lot of men who will never be that strong moral man, right? So them having a woman who is that way, streams without. All right, Simon, I'll give that to you. Yeah, I mean, they would probably be stronger in their statements than they are now, because when they give fake data, people like me go in, look at the data, and then prove them wrong. Now, here's why they still have people watching them. People aren't going to pay attention to me, right? They're not going to pay attention to the guy that disagrees with them. They're going to sit and watch Endymion videos. The most that people see of me when it comes to like Endymion and the other ones is my name in the credits of an Endymion video. There we go. So, but for some like Endymion, this is insufficient. Like so many Grum's followers and mimickers, he needs the tea leaves. Steam chart, wishlist spikes, refund rumors, all to validate his discomfort. He needs numbers to prove his side is winning. He needs tribal metrics to make the moral unease feel like a victory. Number one fan club member, Wargaming Dad. That's right. Hey, I need to go grab a lozenge real quick. Let me put on something here. I'll just put on the main song again real quick, and I'll be back.
J Squad.
We gotta find. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. Now what do we do? That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. We gotta find. That's the first clue. That's the first clue.
All right, let's shut this down. There we go. That helps. I had some throat spray and a little lozenge to get us through the day. Let's see here. But some people like Endymion TV. This is insufficient. Yep. Well, they have to have numbers. If you put number, and this is not just an anti-woke tactic. This is a tactic that's been used by media for as long as it's been on TV, right? News media does this where they will post a, yo, what's going on? So is it Ingad or can I still call you Sigma, since you seem to have changed your name everywhere? But like one thing I'll say, this is something that the media does pretty regularly, is they'll put like a chart. EGAD is my original name. All right, I'll start referring you that way. Media will post a picture of some kind of chart, right? And they'll say, hey, this chart proves this thing, but there's no source to the chart. You don't know where the chart came from. It's been very common for this to be done. It's even become more of a problem online where people will just post a chart, but it's easy to fake those charts. I think someone's even caught Endymion faking a chart, or at least someone in the anti-woke faking a chart for, to make something look right. Let's see. In his video on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 entitled Woke Activists Demand Players Boycott Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 plus Smear Campaign Exposed, Endymion introduces a supposed insider named Marco Corrosion and claims to have vetted him. However, the whole vetting process was laughably superficial, as he simply cited Marco Corrosion's tweet profile. Because, oh, shoot. Look at me. Old man doing it again. So here's Corrosion. Browser isn't up on stream. But the chart says that this, and this. Saw it with a lot of like black crime statistics and stuff like that during the whole whatever his name was. And you've seen it again with a lot of the trans stuff, statistics that get put out there, but they have no context to them. So yeah, this is where they'll say that they have some kind of vetting process, but I don't think any of them have a vetting process, or at least they don't know. They may have started to after they got called out by McDizzle, but we'll see. I prefer the truth to clout. That's, you have to go with that. Common sense absolutist. Anyone who says common sense nowadays, you're about to hear the dumbest shit you've ever heard in your life. Yeah, mutes himself, blinds the audience, must be DEI. Oh. And he calls himself a gaming analyst, but there's so many out there. I mean, I can type up this profile right now if I wanted to. On his X profile says gamer. Yeah, must be legit. The tragedy is this works. Endymion's greatest audience is unlikely to verify anything themselves because they're too wrapped up in the idea that their side is winning. Kingdom Come is no doubt doing good either way, apparently. Been investing since 2016 after participating in Embracer and Paradox. Okay. What's your game here? I don't even know what he's trying to say. I need the context for that, but it's repost. There's a lot of like reposting yourself or watching your own videos and saying that you're, using your news outlets, article or your own article as the source, right? I think you have to look at other things, or at least as the only source. If you want to say you made an article about something, then that's fine. But like the way Masters of TDS and all of them do it, where they just absolutely dive into the idea that they only talk about their article, or a lot of these guys just read other people's tweets and things like that. Corrosion is such a sped. Using him as a source is crazy, but they don't care what the source is because no one's going to look it up. Even after members of Endymion's own audience pointed out that his source was a troll, he never issued a correction, never penned a clarifying comment, and never took down the video talking about it. For someone with thousands of subscribers, that kind of silence should have been a massive credibility hit. But it hasn't been, and that should tell you everything you need to know about the state of YouTube commentary. People don't follow grifters like Endymion for truth. They follow them for emotional validation, tribal signaling, and the illusion that their side is winning. Yeah, I can't say much about that. That's pretty true. None of these guys are going to go watch anybody of the opposite thing. Or if they do, the only thing that they're looking for when they're watching an opposition's video is for a gotcha that they can give to the content creator, right? What's truly bizarre about the response about KDA or KCD2 are the inconsistencies surrounding it compared to reactionaries in 2023, 2024. Another telling sign is that Endymion has no clue about what rhetoric to espouse or just grifts is that when Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 came out, he couldn't decide what his stance was. Well, here's the thing. Especially with people like Endymion, they have to know what the narrative is. Because they watch Grums constantly fuck up the narrative because he jumps ahead. So they don't want to double down into a game unless they feel like they can do it. Now, like, their new tactic has been, instead of being quiet, they just try and push the narrative over and over and over again that the game is woke. Like, it's what they're doing with Ghost of Yotei now. Everything is just pouring into that idea of the game is woke no matter what, because they believe it worked for Assassin's Creed Shadows. So they believe at this point that they can make any game woke. To this day, it baffles me as to why he wouldn't just have done what he eventually did do, play the game and analyze the media in front of him. But nowadays, I'm hearing all these claims of audience capture where commenters seemingly have no autonomy and instead just end up echoing the sentiments expressed by their viewers. Noteworthy is that Endymion cited Grums to justify his changing position, creating a fog of plausible deniability. This is something I've noticed in a lot of grifters to do. If they don't know what the opinion to have, they just cite Grums and call it a day. Even then, another thing that they do is Vivara literally called someone with a Nazi symbol and everyone turned against him. Nice. Though I don't know who that is. I'll have to look at him. Then let's see, where were you at here? They don't just do this. They also do other things to preface it with it. Like, we already saw Smash use it when he said, "Oh, I always said the game was going to sell." Indy will say, "Oh, I always said the game was going to sell," because while they're shitting on the game up until release and they have really no viable information, they will say things like, "I'm sure it'll still do well. It's Sucker Punch. I'm sure it'll still do well. It's an Ubisoft game. I'm sure it'll still do well." They do this not because they believe the game's going to do well or bad. They do this in case the game is bad. So they can just go back and say, I wasn't wrong. Well, you were. In all of your context of the game, in all of your analysis of the game, you were wrong. Like, you were wrong in pretty much everything you said. The lesbian being in the game. What else had they said about it that was contradictory? They contradict themselves with their words. Yeah, pretty much. It being people boycotting it because of the Charlie Kirk stuff. They've been wrong about everything that comes around with it. and they've been, or the statistical numbers and the game not selling. They've been wrong about all of that, but they can always fall back on, well, I always said it would make money. How grifters operate the Endymion TV playbook. Endymion TV's recent post about Ghost of Yotei is a textbook example of how grift sustains itself through tribal validation and selective farming. Let's break it down. Even Elena has the game at their best estimates of 1.6 million. Some moron on Twitter are saying it sold 2.5. Their fanboys are just pulling random numbers out of their asses. He's one to talk. Regardless, Yotei did nothing close to Tsushima, couldn't even beat its 3-day numbers despite being a sequel. Easiest layup ruined because they wanted Antifa Lady. I guess they fired Antifa Lady. It's so, like, you see how they changed the narrative? Easiest layup ruined because they had someone who said something about Charlie Kirk. Oh man. And then later they fought for their boy who straight up just talks about black crime statistics and how women shouldn't vote. Oh yeah, he's talking about the voice actor who isn't even on it anymore. Even that's wrong. Even if he's talking about the voice actor, that's wrong. She's not with it anymore. She probably was done doing her voiceovers by the time the Charlie Kirk stuff had happened, probably months before the Charlie Kirk thing happened. So I don't see how that's even an analysis. Like, they have no proof of any of that. Yeah, the age-old separate politics thing they used to use and say, true, separate the person from the politics, even though they're incredibly far right. I'll say far right. A lot of people get labeled as far right, but I don't think a lot of people are actually far right. Frame a narrative around winning. The post mocks morons on Twitter for claiming higher sales, asserts that Yotei failed to match Tsushima's performance, despite data showing it recouped dev costs within 2 days. This is true. This creates false binary. Yotei is a failure because it didn't outperform its predecessor, even though it succeeded by industry standards. This is another thing you saw with Assassin's Creed, right? Second largest selling game in Ubisoft history. Everything saying that they made money off of it, it still failed because it didn't make 100,000 Kabolis or something like that, right? Emotional hook via culture war rhetoric. Excuse me. The phrase easiest layup ruined because they wanted Antifa Lady, I guess, is pure tribal bait. It implies that the game supposed failure is due to ideological choices, not market dynamics or creative direction. They did the thing to John and everyone calls him a furry now. Yeah, well, here's the thing. Everyone was already calling him, a lot of people were already calling him a furry, but then he fell off with the anti-wokes, so they started calling him a furry too, so now both sides call him a furry, right? This primes the audience to associate any deviation from their preferred aesthetic with sabotage. Now this I really like this statement. I really like this statement, Edgar. This primes the audience to associate any deviation from their preferred aesthetic with sabotage. This is true. They have this political ideology. You should just flat out hate the game. This does go against what Grizzle was saying earlier about their separate politics. So it's like, in one hand, when it's their politics, just separate the politics because the guy's a groiper or whatever. But when it comes to those that are against them, it's sabotage for the industry. Misuse of data to reinforce bias. The graphic shows conflicting numbers, 1.6 plus copies sold, best estimate, versus 2 million plus copies sold, truth, without clarifying sources or methodology. This is one thing that I always say. Like, I try in like my posts and everything about it to at least link the source that I had, show the context, full context of something, and try and link the account so people can go look for themselves. The percentage of players as played section is designed to imply audience overlap, but it's meaningless without context, timeframes, platforms, sampling. True. The presence of the Alinea Analytics branding adds a veneer of legitimacy, but the data is selectively framed to support Endymion's narrative. Didn't the guy who writes for Alinea go after him at this point? Hey, damage sector, you made it in. He doesn't cite sources transparently. He doesn't acknowledge counter evidence like the damage sector post, and doesn't engage in fair analysis. The goal isn't to inform, but to emotionally validate a specific audience and keep them engaged through outrage and tribal loyalty. Damage sector does have some good points a lot of times. He needs to let off the pig stuff, or I'm gonna boot him out of everything. But Endymion, look how poorly Ghost of Yotei Data is selling. Alina, who he used as a source to boost his claims, looks at how well it's selling. It's safe to say that Sony's Samurai sequel is doing well for the company. Yoita made its dev costs back after its second day on the market, an outcome that's becoming rarer for huge AAA releases. More on that later. Yeah, I mean, if they're already in the profit margins, or if they're already in the, hey, we've paid for the game and now they're making profits off of it, yes, they have a certain amount they want to reach over that because the investors want to get paid. But this is a success in a lot of metrics, especially nowadays where you have companies that are losing money on games. This is the grift engine in motion. Find a tribal narrative, insert vague data or fake sources, repeat emotionally charged phrases, never correct, never clarify, monetize the outrage. We're gonna save this to something. I don't because we're gonna start using this right here. We're gonna start using this to mark out what they've done. I'm not going to eat less bacon. Sorry, damage sector. That's okay because pigs would eat bacon too. It's not good for them, but they would eat it too. Good thing the game didn't go out on Steam, right? Well, here's the thing: if it would out on Steam, it probably would have done even better, right? Though I'm sure they would have twisted the analytics on it. Where is? Let's just go to Notepad. Notepad. Boop. Because I am keeping that for later. This is how Slop Tube Grift works. Not through outright lies, but through selective farming, emotional manipulation, and the illusion of insider authority. People are led to believe this side is winning, not because it's true, but because it feels good. And a lot of this is where I talk about the surface level approach. Yeah, I would like to have put it at 50K. Now Assassin's Creed Shadows peaked at 70-ish, so maybe the more artistic, high-quality Japanese game probably would have done better. I mean, who's to say on that side? I think here soon we're going to start seeing if moving to, multiple platforms is going to be good, especially with Square Enix moving away from Sony to go on multiple platforms. I think that's going to kind of show, is the single platform causing problems where they could have made a lot more money? Because I know the game doesn't tend to, Final Fantasy VII, I guess, didn't hit the numbers they were hoping to hit when it came out on PC. And it's because all the hype for the game is gone. There are people who, are going to wait around and play the game, but it doesn't build up the same as it does when the game's about to come out, right? And crucially, finally, to take this into account, when you consider something like Asmongold's laminating that Ghost of Yotei has been conscripted into the culture war coming from someone who spent years farming engagement through culture war rhetoric, this reads as expedient distancing, where he can feign neutrality while still benefiting from the tribal machinery he himself continues to instigate. Yeah, that is what I think Asmongold is doing. I almost think he might start doing it in politics, because I don't think he's, we'll see, but I don't think he's as happy with politics as he was hoping he would be. And crucially, none of this has taken should be taken as confirmation that Asmongold is even committed to the position he's expressing. That's the point. His vector of engagement shifts with the moment, optimized for reach. Today it's exhaustion with tribalism. Tomorrow he'll be back to dunking on woke game devs. What's clear is that his audience doesn't really care about the consistency, just monetary emotional resonance. All in all, this just amounts to a funny kind of absurdity, a culture war ecosystem where no one holds a consistent position, yet everyone insists they're fighting for something real. Nice, well done. Instant dismissal. Already a hater, huh? Oh, it was liked. Simple certainty, reading your article and then confirms my simplistic IQ method of finding something I like and prefer. Yep. I think I don't usually tend to like articles that Fandom Pulse reads. I've read a few of them and just completely come off base, but the EGAD is a good channel. I think he does look into it more, and he is, while I disagree with some of his takes, this is a pretty good analysis of what's going on, and kind of shines light on that idea that the top guys could really be grifting, because it's no longer about the truth. It's about making sure that they have engagement. All right. So with that, we're going to go straight into Ghost of Yotei, sales leaked, and it's bleak. Pretty much what he was already talking about.
Ghost of Yotei has sold well or not in its first very crucial week of release. But a few caveats and such before I get there. Firstly, these numbers are digital only, so no physical sales, although I'll get into those after a bit later on too. Secondly, the numbers that I was given are only for all of Europe, United States of America, and Canada combined, which, let's be real, those are the biggest markets for games like a Sony first-party game anyway, so this means that the numbers that I was given are still pretty bleak. Okay, with that out of the way, what do you think? 2 million copies? 3? Maybe 5 million copies?
Yeah.
The official number for Ghost of Yotei's digital sales for its first week as of this video anyways is 1.1 million copies.
So he says this is official. Where is he giving that from? Like, official would be Sony or Sucker Punch coming out and saying the official numbers. Everything else that has come out has been like data miners that are speculating on how much. They could be off. There are some data miners that are more reliable than others, so they're somewhere in the ballpark, but none of it is for sure. And he says 1.1 million, later says 1.3. Yeah, it does make him sound like he's got some true insiders at Sucker Punch, and I just don't believe it.
Yep, it's bleak. It's actually not good at all, and I already know.
After finding out that one of Smash's insiders was actually just a troll, I believe that most of these guys' insiders are probably trolls.
Me saying this out loud is going to piss off every single defender of this game. But I was given this information directly from people who have all the access and such to this sort of information, so it's verified and it's not looking good, fellas.
Yeah, McDizzle is the distractor.
Firstly, Yotei in its first week, based on data, has sold 40% more than Tsushima digitally. But this is likely due to the goodwill that Tsushima built as the start of the franchise 5 years ago. From what I was also told, in most big places in the world for...
See, here's the... yeah, just trust me, bro. Here's the problem I have with this statement right here. Let's go back a little bit.
Tsushima digitally. But in its first week, based on data, has sold 40% more than Tsushima digitally. But this is likely due to the goodwill that Tsushima built as the start.
is it likely due to the goodwill, or is it the fact that physical sales have been dropping off because more and more people are buying digital? I think that's a much more solid approach. 2 butts in a row. Than this kind of idea of it's because of the goodwill brought up. Yes, the series built a lot of goodwill and it's going to have backing off of that, but there's also economic factors, there's market factors involved, right? The fact that in the last 5 years, physical sales are down tremendously. I think one of the analysts said that when it comes to the digital sales or not the physical sales in Japan, it's down 40% compared to Tsushima. So I think he's just shooting off the hip in this part.
Started the franchise 5 years ago. From what I was also told, in most big places,
it's also funny that he says 5 years ago, but that's the time frame that the data analyst said that digital sales started plummeting.
The world for comparison, Tsushima was a pretty even 50-50 split with physical and digital sales. However, for Yotei in Europe, it's looking more like 70% digital, 30% physical these days, which is not surprising considering that most games sold these days are usually via digital sales anyways, let's be honest. And from these people,
then why make the first statement about digital sales being up? Is he just trying to he's trying to use that information from the previous statement or he's using this to cut down the previous statement that the game is doing better digitally. By the way, something else to keep listening to is the whole what I was told. Makes it sound like people are coming to him, like he is some kind of authority. This works psychologically. Yeah, that's generally the thing. You want to say that people are coming to you versus you going out and searching for the data. It's just about what sounds better. So yeah, I can see that.
Professional opinions, the general consensus that I was given is that they are looking at Yotei's first week sales as not bad to somewhat disappointed, but they frankly believe that it should have done way better than it has already. In their expert opinions, they told me that Tsushima sold slightly less than Yotei in its first week, but it's
okay. So here's the thing, like his insiders are saying this, but a lot of the analysts online are saying that it did fairly well. So why are your analysts so opposite of the rest of the internet, right? Why is yours that way? Now, what they're going to tell you, and he may bring it up, is that there's this narrative passed around for it because Hypnotic gave this same take that it's, was it this or was it something else that was doing bad? I think it was for this. And that, you know, they're lying to you about the narrative. They're lying to you. The problem is, for their information to be right, everyone else has to be wrong. It's so unlikely that the entire games media is lying about Ghost of Tsushima, right? It's just not plausible. Yes, you can talk about you know, the idea that they may not talk as bad about games, but they will sometimes in a lot of other efforts. It's you have to have proof of this stuff, and there really isn't anything. And when everybody else has to be wrong, like they all have to be lying to you, it kills your motive, really. It kills that anything you say could be right.
Not exactly a good sign because Tsushima was an unknown new franchise at the time, so naturally it's expected that when a new franchise has a crazy start like Tsushima did, which let's look at that data from 5 years ago if you don't mind, as seen here from Sony themselves 5 years ago. Tsushima was the fastest selling new IP in Sony's history at the time with 2.4 million units sold in its first week. Yotei has not sold anywhere near that, unfortunately, for them. It's actually probably about half of that. Again, that 1.1 million units is for digital only, but again, digital is the strongest sell for most games, and the fact that Sony was barely able to break just over 1 million copies sold, and arguably their 3 biggest markets that cover most of the planet is, well, let's be real guys, not good at all. There's a reason.
Now, at this point, I don't know if any numbers have come out for the US, but I haven't seen numbers come out for the US or for the biggest ones. I've seen Germany, France, I've seen Japan, the UK, but I haven't seen anything for the US. So where is he getting this information from that the US, like even if you look at the numbers in these other countries, They're number one. Ghost of Yotei is sitting number one in all of these countries. Why would it suddenly flop in the U.S.? It just seems odd to me. Maybe it won't do as well for some reason, but it's really just a trust me, bro. At this point,
Reason why Sucker Punch and Sony have been so quiet lately on Yotei.
Most game companies don't usually talk unless it's something like Ghost of Yotei that broke fucking records. Gaming companies aren't going to put out information. They want to see how it plays out. You at least want to go to the weekend, right? And a lot of times I think it's an average of like 2 weeks before anyone puts out numbers.
Because based on that data, the game is not necessarily a flop. I wouldn't say that yet, but
And there's the preface it.
It's also not doing gangbusters or splitting the heavens or anything either. The saving grace for Yotei, though, is that it was made on the cheaper side, around $60 to $66 million in budget or so, which I know is still a lot of money for you or me, but when it comes to AAA games, that's nothing compared to what they usually cost.
Dude, that's pennies compared to what they normally cost. You got like $300 million games.
Call of Duty titles usually cost around $400 million plus per game to make it if you want other AAA comparisons. Spider-Man 2 was $300 million as well, which is probably a better comparison since it's also Sony. But Yotei has not done Spider-Man.
And here's the thing with comparatives. Like, you really can't compare Spider-Man to Ghosts, right? They're two different styles of games. The Spider-Man series as a Marvel series is going to sell more numbers than something like Ghost of Yotei does, because it'll sell to people who don't play a lot of games outside of these kind of games. Spider-Man is more popular.
Spider-Man numbers or God of War or even Horizon. If any of Sony's franchises that costed more in line with what AAA usually does, and they also only sold about 1.1 million copies in about a week, you would be expecting layoffs and then some, because let's be real, it's pretty horrible. But from the people I spoke,
it's that comparison. If it doesn't make 5 to 10 million copies, then it's a failure. They have a line that they put in the sand for these games to be a failure, a line that changes depending on what they decide it is, and then they compare it to everything else, and that's just not the way it works when it comes to certain things. There's so many different factors in the market that can determine what makes the game popular and what makes the game money. Like, this game being only 60 million means that the more over that million that they needed to, or whatever they needed to make money back, is more profit for the company to put into the next game, to get to investors, to all of that different stuff. This is, I think, is a trend we're going to see with a lot of I'm hoping to see with a lot of gaming companies. And why we've been seeing a lot of layovers is there's so much bloat. You have these huge companies these huge dev teams that can't keep the information together, and you get slop games that don't connect well because there's too many people working on it. Most people don't know the entirety of the game or even a big piece of the game because they only work on an individual piece, where it sounds like Sucker Punch, there was a lot more connection. It worked out well. They put a lot more in together. I've heard the story sucks. That's, like I said, that depends on your feelings about it. I have to play it for myself to see if I don't like the story or like the story. That's one really hard to do based off of someone's opinion, because you'll hear different things on that, right? But yeah, it's just completely brain dead to have this idea of it has to be this much.
Spoke to of that shared this information with me originally.
I heard it's just simple.
Yotei, in their opinion, costed more because open world games generally cost more to make than any other type of game these days due to the sheer scope of them. But Sucker Punch was very smart, at least, to reuse assets aplenty, not to mention setting their game back in Japan.
And this is like, he already like contradicts the first game was around 60 million. Like, we don't really know the totals, of course, but the first game was made that way, and they had to make all their own assets for it. So you're just wrong. just absolutely wrong.
And again, which obviously allowed them to reuse pretty much everything from Tsushima as well. But again, Yotei has sold roughly half or less of that than what Tsushima has in the same time period, despite being a sequel with apparently goodwill and a roaring start that Tsushima placed for them. The easiest layup of all time, but this is how it's gone, I guess. Now, I know people will say,
this is how I've gone, I guess. Like, it's just not speaking with confidence at all.
it's the right-wing grifters' fault, but let's be real, guys. Not everyone watches YouTube videos on games. Not everyone is as in tune with the culture as the people watching this video right now. So this means that even the most milquetoast vanilla gamers who just buy what they like and know literally nothing about the politics behind them, they also didn't buy the game either, it looks like, which tells me.
So this is him just admitting that him crying about games isn't the vast majority of gamers right there. He's just absolutely shitting on himself because this is the idea that they're the ones that are saving gaming and this is what gamers want. But that's not true if gamers are going out and buying it without them, right? And then again, like, it's, where is he getting this stuff from? Who hasn't bought the game? He's already claimed that these are the official numbers when no official numbers have been brought up.
That players in general are just completely done with either female-led first-party Sony games, which I don't blame them since that's most of them these days, let's be honest, or they're just tired of open-world games, but I think it's the first thing less so than the open-world thing myself. I also think the Charlie Kirk dev firing thing was also a big reason why a lot of people in Europe, America, and Canada also didn't buy the game either. And the added
I don't really think that had much of anything to do with it because everyone was focused around everything else dealing with Charlie Kirk. Only the anti-wokes gave a shit about this woke woman. That shit didn't make it mainstream, right? That's a side plot to everything else. And pretty much that entire gamer fucking website was a side plot to the greater thing. It didn't go mainstream, except for maybe Asmon. But even then, he's only so many people know about him. Like, he's big online and he has been brought up in articles, but most people don't know who the fuck Asmongold is.
dagger to the heart of the lead actor Erika Ishii's Antifa comment definitely didn't help since that went viral pretty much too. You can go to any post on Yotei from Sony, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, or more, the same things just keep getting said.
Yeah, that's a good point, Red Stain. Some people didn't like Charlie Kirk or they didn't know him. Like this, the idea that moment is what tanked this game when, one, we don't have proof of that, and two, it was barely paid attention to. The drama lasted a week. It's brain dead.
People are not buying the game just as for Charlie Kirk, and now with us knowing that it's only 1.1 million digital copies in Sony's 3 biggest markets, that's frankly abysmal by comparison. It's Dragon Age Veilguard all over again. Well, maybe a little bit better than Veilguard, but not by much.
And here's the thing they have to do. They have to bring up the games that have failed in the past so that they can, kind of, look, I was right about this game, which is completely brain dead. You're also talking about a game that was on all 3 platforms versus a game that's only on 1 platform. They are so desperate to get one to power their shit. Yeah, exactly.
Both games, by the way, star Erika Ishii, so I'm sensing.
What the heck? Oh, God, it did it again. Hold on. Y'all can probably hear it, but I can't hear it. It's this headset, I think, is fucking dying.
A pattern here too.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You also see that they've gotten into this thing where there's no content. So they're going after indie games and they repeat Concord Veilguard, and then for AAA games, they repeat Dustborn, which wasn't even a AAA game, but they have to put it in there because it's a win and they have to show how many wins they have.
Too. However, my sources told me the real battle is usually not the first week, it's actually the second. Since the first week is all the pre-orders and the hype, obviously, so the second week, like when a movie comes out, shows if that product has legs, if you will. I don't
kind of like I was saying, they usually don't announce anything until after the second week, because a lot of gamers too, when it comes to it, don't start. They may have bought the game or they may not have, and they'll buy it over the weekend. and play when they have that time. So
Think that Ghost of Yotei will flop though, again, simply because of that alleged really low budget. However, Alania Analytics had some more information too, so let's read into what they have to say as well. They do try to swindle the numbers a lot in their post, mind you, but here's their infographic.
so he says he flat out said this is the proof he brings up, right? This post, he doesn't bring up the actual article and make any notes of what's said in the article because that would go against his narrative. He has to bring this up.
On screen. They say that 1.6 million copies were sold in the first week, which is almost a million less than Tsushima did in its first week as well. But they do try to swindle it by saying that 2 million copies were sold to retailers. Like, what? But that number doesn't actually mean anything because that's to retailers, not the players. Like, every game sells in the millions to retailers physically, like Best Buy or GameStop. That's nothing new. So that's not exactly a metric of success that matters here. So it's curious why they added that number there, if for any other reason that I would guess than to just put a bigger number on screen so people who don't understand.
And there it is. They have to put a bigger screen on there because they have a narrative to make the game seem like a success. Like, does Annalena have a narrative? Like, are they so woke that they have to pretend the game is good?
Understand things can then use it as a gotcha probably. And by the way, if you enjoy the content and want more non-BS reporting on games, consider liking the video, subscribing, leaving a comment. Thank you very much. But we can do.
That's a good point. That's a good point. We're gonna bring that up here. If you haven't liked the stream, please like the stream. It helps me out immensely in getting into the algorithm so I can be the grifter everyone thinks I am. Also, if you really enjoy my content, you come back here, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can hear me or you can get my notifications when I'm going live. I usually do live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And then if you're feeling super generous, I do have a coffee. You can donate a little bit of money. I think it set it up right for TTS. So, like Indy said, you know, you want good news coverage on gaming, or if you just want to watch Slop with me, then stop on by. All right, let's go back to the main course. Thank you, Indy.
Do some math though too. So digital copies overall were 1.1 million. So that leaves about 500,000 copies sold physically or so, according to
Coffee Works Ye help you get to Stellar Blade, obviously, to play on the games day. already liked. Well, thank you, Eric. Thank you. Welcome to the channel.
Alania. That being said, it also means that what Alania showed that only 25% or so of the actual physical copies that were shipped to retailers actually got bought by consumers, meaning that the vast majority of that 2 million mark is.
Where is he getting that number from? Is he getting it from the Japanese one where it was 200,000 copies sold? I don't understand where he's getting that number from.
Stagnating on the shelves.
And it's also noteworthy that he brings up that post with no context and then doesn't show his data proving it wrong,
with no one willing to buy the copies of the game, which
he is just spoiling it
than I thought originally. But it also says that 77% of the share was digital, which is that 1.1 million number that I gave you guys already. So this correlates exactly with what I was told then and proves it more that Yotei did not do nearly as well as Tsushima did. However, the game did not flop, maybe, but again, because Sucker Punch was.
The game did not flop, maybe. He's prefacing himself again to make sure he doesn't get it wrong, right?
Smart on the budget, at least. Had they did a Spider-Man level budgeted game, this would be a catastrophic failure for Sucker Punch as a studio.
Also having to bring up Spider-Man again.
This means they just maybe made back their budget, but their actual sales are lagging far behind that of Tsushima. At the very least, I guess it means that Sucker Punch maybe won't suffer layoffs, maybe anyways, who knows yet anyway.
Why even bring that up if you're going to say maybe? You have no idea. The game is making money, and games sell over long periods of time. That game doesn't stop selling after the second week. It keeps selling over and over and over again. through the time period of the life. When they do DLC, they can see a jump in people playing or even buying the game because people buy the game and the new DLC. It's just he just wants it to fail so bad so he can make another video saying it failed.
I don't know yet, obviously, but it's pretty obvious that Sony is still likely not happy with this results, and Tsushima was explosive out of the gate. And this is, well, not doing nearly that. But again, saying 2 million copies sold to retailers, that's just so disingenuous of Alania. They definitely only put that there to soften the blow, it seems. It's like some food retailer being like, yeah, so what if no one bought our apples? We still sold our apples to the retailer. So what if they're all rotten now? Stop being a bigot. Just because nobody bought our apples doesn't mean they're not good. Like, you can't be serious. Yeah.
But you have no metric to go by whether those sales are happening physically, right? Whose gameplay is he showing? That's a good question. That is a very good question. Because I don't know that he played the game. Because he may be doing some kind of review of it, you would think, but that usually doesn't come up.
Yeah, like movie studios also, I guess, sell their movies in a sense to movie theaters, but if nobody's watching them, then they're not making money, are they? But I wouldn't put it past the usual.
Well, I mean, that's a dumbass take. Movie theaters don't make their money off of the movies. They make them off of popcorn and drink sales. They pay very little for the movies generally in terms of it.
Apologists use that number to shill it either way, but at least you guys all know. So if they do say that, call them out because they're being, disingenuous. But yeah, they only sold 25% of their physical copies, which is, yikes, dude, not good at all. Expect some sales on Yotei pretty quick, probably.
Again, can you show me those numbers?
Although it has been confirmed that Yotei sold about 120,000 copies physically in Japan alone, which if that were anywhere else in the world, that would be frankly pretty abysmal. But since that's in Japan, it's actually pretty good, I'll be honest. Because if you didn't know, the Japanese are not very susceptible to buying physical copies of games these days. So Yotei didn't do great in Japan, but again, 120.
What metric is he going by? It's sales are down for physical games, but it sold 120,000. Like, what metric are you going by? Where is the proof that it didn't sell well in Japan besides it's 40% lower than Ghost of Tsushima? I don't think he played the game. That was what was bizarre about his Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 coverage. He made a diary on X of his progress. I've never seen him do that before. I did not know that. I missed that. I just kind of started getting into it a little bit, or I forget what I was doing at that point in time, but I don't remember watching his coverage.
20,000 in Japan physically, which
I still need to watch your video on that coverage.
Decent, considering how that nation works when it comes to games. Because Japan is very much so more a mobile game sort of nation. It's why the Switch and such do so well there, because you can obviously take it on the go, and it makes sense that there's rumors that Sony wants to do a Nintendo Switch-like system for the PS6, but we'll see what happens there eventually, but who knows. But according to people reacting to Alania's numbers, they're claiming that Alania is wrong all the time, but I don't know about that myself. I find their numbers are usually pretty good or
Who is the... He just cut off his own feet by saying that he just cut off his own feet by saying that they're wrong all the time. And one, who's they? Are they wrong all the time? If people are saying they're wrong all the time, I mean, you can go back and compare articles that they've said about a game to official sales numbers and see how right they were. So you didn't do any of that before you started using them as a source?
Decent at least. They may, muck things up here or there. But regardless, that 1.6 million total for your sequel game is not very good, but it is what it is. This then brings me to what the rest of the industry is also saying, which just strengthens what I was already told. This comes from that Park Place as it reads here. Rumor, Ghost of Yotei ads quickly scaled back by Sony Japan due to collapsing sales.
This is that Park Place, because Marvin Montero, who I'm pretty sure is just an AI name for the owner to also write multiple articles. Yeah, not AI Fairy Park Place. I'm pretty sure this Marvin Monotaro guy is not a real person. I'm pretty sure he's just a copy paste for someone else at the channel. I've yet to see anything or hear anything about him. If he wanted to make a better critique, there should be a comparison to prior games in Japan for physical copies, but he drops that line of thought immediately. It's because I have seen where people have brought that up and been like, look, this is what the market is in the past. But that would require actually doing anything other than surface level analysis. They find something that has hit the algorithm on X, and then they use that to build this narrative.
That Park Place says here as well. According to the source, the decision comes in response to disappointing sales trends and a desire not to lose money on a game that has a declining sales trajectory. Yeah, sadly, I think we're going to be seeing a...
So, we'll stop here for a minute. There's two sources that they use in here. One of them is their insider source, so trust me, bro. And the other one is, oh God, what was the name of that fucking channel? I think one of your posts, let me go on. The other one was an AI Slop art channel that said this. So their source is a, why am I in general? God, I'm old. Hang up. Was it in Feed the Pig? Because I know a couple people who have pointed it out. Of course, I can't find it. I do not trust a single Grum's bootlicker like that AI account, not just a lie. Well, I mean, no one knows who runs that AI account. It's just used as, it just says what they want it to say, so they use it as proof, right? And that's kind of where it comes from. I'm going to pull up this account, though. I don't remember what the first part of it was. Where is it? Where are you? Emerald Apple. That's what it is. Emerald Apple. There they are. This is the account that they're using as a source. Emerald Apple. Hot AI gaming drama enthusiast. Politically centrist. Over 500 sets of AI art here. Join for free. Oh, where? Benefits of pornography. It's just not a, this is a slop channel. This is a slop post channel that, glad I never watched any of these modern e-thought streamers. As soon as something goes wrong, they throw people like Asmongold under the bus. See, it's not, there's no legitimacy to this. This person shows no credits. Let's see, Yotei. Boop, boop, boo. See if we can find that one. Political centrist, ha, don't make me laugh. I'm more of a true centrist than them. Yeah. Hyped for the game. Doesn't even have 1 million views. You see this kind of sources they're using? Over 2 weeks with an 84% dislike ratio. Jump scare. Where? Oh, it went back. Let's see here. Copy link. Will this work? So this is, I think, one of the ones. It's obvious Ghost of Yotei is not doing well. The Twitch viewership plummeted from their peak of 111,000 viewers to less than 13K in 5 days. Google Trends show a consistent decline even during the weekend, which is a worst case scenario for the game. Like, this is the analysis that he's going off of, right? This is the analysis that he's going off of. I'm assuming it's a he. Every time I see one of these Slop AI channels, it's always a he, especially when they mention themselves as hot AI gaming. So that's his source. That's Park Place's source. This is the Kotaku of the anti-woke, but worse.
A lot of this in the coming future. The reality is that Ghost of Yotei has not done gangbusters the way that Sony clearly intended it to do. They genuinely thought that they had another Tsushima on their hands, but Tsushima sold around 1 million copies more than Yotei did in the same time frame, while also being an unknown new franchise to.
Again, data analysis, not numbers. Did it sell as much on the first day? Definitely not. I don't think so. I think they would have announced that. But No real numbers, just numbers that he found that aligned with his idea that he could push that it was broken.
To boot, and by the way, it was during COVID. But anyway, these numbers are frankly embarrassing for Sucker Punch and Sony, if I'm being honest, because remember, Yotei is meant to be their big fall game, when if you compare it to anything else that is coming out this fall, Yotei is frankly being decimated. Maybe not a fair comparison, I know, but Battlefield...
You even say it's not a fair comparison. What the fuck are you talking about? If it's not a fair comparison, it's not a fair comparison, right? Yes, they want this game to do well, but I doubt their numbers on how well it was going to do, their predictions, were up there in the tens of millions or 5 million week one, right?
Field 6 is going to shoot past...
It's just like he'll go ahead and say something in almost confidence, and then he'll flat out be like, oh, well, you know, it might not be.
Yotei sealed numbers in probably under 30 minutes of release. But that's what you get when your game is, you know, actually wanted by players. Yotei is just going to be another middling Sony game that will likely be 40%, if not more off by this fall season, probably. And inevitably, in a year or two, it'll probably also come to PS Plus. Maybe not as a title that you can redeem forever. I doubt they'll do that, but they will likely add it to the service as a title that exists there and said to be played for a bit before pulling it off.
You see him saying these things and hoping that this will happen, and when it does, he can say he's right. He's just shooting in the dark. If the game doesn't go on sale for whatever reason, then he will say nothing, and it's just buried inside this video.
Off of there to, you know, incentivize sales, maybe. They literally do the same thing with Last of Us Part 2 Remastered and Part 1 that just came to PS Plus, by the way, after less than a year of that game being released too. But anyways, circling back to that.
It just... Dude, they've been milking that game for fucking years. That's like what, the 12th attempt of them remarketing that game?
Park Place, they did have more to say.
Yeah, it's not going to sell well when everyone's already played it 100 times. You can't keep remastering the same game.
Part of their source told them that the situation surrounding Ghost of Yotei has surprised
Naughty Dog, Kimmy.
Their game being released remastered and Part 1 that just came to PS Plus, by the way, after less than a year of that game being released too. But anyways, circling back to that Park Place, they did have more to say. One part of their source told them that the situation surrounding Ghost of Yotei has surprised Sony PlayStation internally, but maybe for all of the wrong reasons. And that they, as seen here, Sony described the situation as unexpectedly soft given the PlayStation exclusive title's heavy pre-launch.
Again, this is coming from that Park Place, which he fails to show the name of. Let's see if he actually linked it. No, he did not link it. This is from that Park Place, who used a 10,000 sub AI Slop channel. And trust me, bro, their source, they say they have a source because they're a news agency. Because they say they're a news agency, they lead to believe that there's some kind of legitimacy to that, right? But so far it's nothing. Like where are they saying this? Sony has said next to nothing on the game.
Promotion and supposed strong start. Yeah, well, that was before people realized Atsu was being played by a literal raging activist and that your developers were celebrating the death of an innocent man.
You see how even and I said this before the chick got fired. I said, it doesn't matter if she gets fired. They're still going to use this against the game. They got to keep pushing those narratives that fit into the box, right? Not that any of it's true, not that any of it's correct, that it changed the game, but just that it fit in the box. Have you noticed how they stopped talking about the boycott, though? Have you noticed that? Like, none of them are talking about the game being boycotted because the numbers are in the millions. And that doesn't look like anyone's boycotting it.
Does tend to have lasting effects on your studio and game.
Jesus Christ, it happened again. Yeah, they're more busy with the song. They're trying to milk anything they can at this point because it's dry out there. It's dry out for all of the commentary guys, from what I'm understanding. But, you know.
But this should come expected and be yet another hard lesson for Sony and their PlayStation brand, that they are ruining their own success by giving into clearly declining Western sensibilities from their first-party studios.
I'll send it over to you. I had it at one point. Once I get off today, I'll find that article. EGAD and send it over to you. All right.
The Twitch viewership numbers are in the dumps already. The highest watch stream of Ghost of Yotei was actually just Asmongold, just dunking on the game, which is probably not what you want, but hey,
He's not really dunking on the game anymore. In fact, he's kind of turned around.
it is what it is. But this cutting of funds, allegedly anyways, for the marketing is usually a foolproof way of confirming that your game is not selling as well as you intended, and it's likely much better to just cease marketing the game in order to, not waste your money.
I believe this is the statement that came from the AI Slop channel specifically, that they changed their marketing. Notice he didn't show that AI Slop channel. There are some who are stupid enough to show it and say that this is their proof, like Smash and some of the others.
Money for literally no reason. If you want a game that does well and has legs, as a great example, that would be, say, Spider-Man 2018 that came out on the PS4. That game had ads for at least a month and then some on many websites and even TV commercials, which translated into sales aplenty for that game. It did over like 20 million.
Also, there's no proof that they're not putting out ads still. Everyone that I've talked to says they're constantly getting ads for stuff for Ghost of Yotei. Yeah, I want to send this to JDA because he and John F. Trent used to work with that park place, but parted because their content was censored or strangled. I gotcha.
Copies sold. But just go look at any gaming website right now. Many of them have already pulled their ads surrounding their websites for Yotei as well, and that's not a good sign, guys. It means that despite pushing Yotei in players' faces 24/7, it's clearly not working. Well, you gotta stop hiring insane activist weirdos as your lead characters and making the Gigabrain move of putting their...
The only people who cared about that actress's views were the anti-woke. And it was just because they saw a woman main character and they were like, okay, we're going to have to dig to find something to call it woke because woman in game.
Faces in the games too. Yeah, stop doing that. Because at that point, it's pretty much impossible to escape the presence of someone who is so clearly radically aligned with things like Antifa of all things. It's not a good look. Because if they say anything stupid or polarizing in the future, at the very least, you can hope people still buy your game and maybe just change the dub to another language or something in order to save face and still make sales at least. But with how Ghost of Yotei set up, it's literally impossible to avoid Eric Ishii. So no thanks. I'm not buying it even when it's on sale. I'm good. I'm just not interested whatsoever. Plus, when this...
Again, number one in Japan, number one in Germany, number one in UK, number one in France. Like it's, it has to be wrong. All of these countries have to be lying about it for it to be right. And like I said, I've yet to see any numbers from the United States. Only these analytics sites, which sometimes can be very off or sometimes can be in the ballpark.
This video drops, Battlefield 6 will be out in the open anyway, so people will probably forget about Yotei real quick here, to be honest. And honestly, I don't blame them. I also want to poke at the gaming journalist who pushed a random tweet of some random user who made up a narrative that Yotei sold 1.3 million units in its first 24 hours. It was this tweet on screen here from Millie A, who's a literal nobody that no one knows, yet they just...
Do you see that? Do you see that? Let me pull up the park place because I know he saw it. Did he? Wait. Wait a minute. Did I spell something wrong? There we go. This is the article right here. So Rumored the Ghost of Yotei ads quickly scaled back. Ghost of Yotei is not doing very well. Their Twitch viewers plummeted, that same one we did. Promotional marketing stopped shortly after release. The account that he is pushing that said that the promotional marketing stopped shortly after is a 10,000 sub Andy, while he talks shit about another 10,000 sub Andy account.
Sold 1.3 million units in its first 24 hours. It was this tweet on screen here from Millie A, who's a literal nobody that no one knows, yet they just
fucking nobody made this statement.
use this.
I rest my case, Your Honor.
Yes, to fire up the propaganda machine regardless. No, Yotei did not sell 1.3 million copies in 24 hours. It barely sold over 1 million units digitally in Sony's 3 biggest markets on this planet in over 1 week of sales in actuality. Of course, to add more salt to the wound, if Yotei was doing incredibly well, you would have seen Sony, or at least Sucker Punch, confirm it, but they haven't. Look at that first thing that I showed you guys in this video, where Sony confirmed that Tsushima broke records day 1. That's the sign of a healthy game. Companies...
That's a sign of a game that broke records. That's what it's saying right here. Fastest selling first party original IP with 2.4 million units sold through globally in its first 3 days. Do you see, like, its first 3 days, it broke records for Sony. Yeah, this one may not have broken records, but you have no idea if it's a success. He's a literal nobody that nobody knows, which is why I talk about him right now. Oh.
Do not report when their games don't sell well. What was another game made by a studio that even over a week that also studio said nothing about its sales too? What was that game again? Oh, right. That was BioWare with Dragon Age Veilguard. That game sold a...
God, if I had... it was Sucker Punch's first rated M game. Really, that I didn't know. Everyone's taking nobody thunder, poor guy. Yeah, I mean, this is them going back to Veilguard again and them not posting the numbers. Did they do it after 2 weeks? I don't remember. I hate thinking back on the Veilguard shit because it was so fucking brain dead everywhere.
Measly 1.5 million copies when it was all said and done. While the previous Dragon Age game, being Inquisition, managed to hit over 11 million units sold and won Game of the Year literally every...
So it's 12 million units sold since it launched in 2014. No, I was just being quiet because I was they're comparing the total number of units sold for Dragon Age Inquisition over since 2014 to Veilguard, which has been around, 2 years? Again, framing and being disingenuous to push their narrative, to push his narrative.
Everywhere. But
that is just flat out dishonest, and he knows it.
Difference was stark when comparing how a franchise can perform and function when it's not riddled with ideology versus when it is. And sadly, I don't think these developers and writers and whoever are going to be learning the right lessons here anyways. It's just going to be you're the problem and not them, even though you didn't make Veilguard or Yotei, but sorry, but we're not the target audience, I guess. Alright, I forgot, but they
always try and push the target audience and this and that. And yeah, there's some wokies that come out and say some fucking woke stuff, right? And that's what they feed upon, is those guys coming in there. But when they're just wrong, they're just wrong.
Also got confirmation that if you compare Yotei to Spider-Man 2 within that same time frame, I was given this information too, by the way, which also is a fair comparison since they both launched on PlayStation 5 only at the time. But anyway, my sources told me that Spider-Man 2 sold roughly 50% or more than Yotei did digitally, specifically.
Bringing up a much bigger franchise to compare it to a more niche franchise, you could say. Yes, it was the biggest game that was sold. The second one, we don't know yet. We really don't. And this is my hate. This is my hate of this whole thing. Like, I don't want to defend and say that it's a successful game. It's at least successful in 4 countries, but I don't know what the US numbers are. I don't know what the total numbers are. No one fucking knows. He's just using this to, absolutely push this narrative.
In Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, but no words on North America yet, but honestly, it probably did better too. Because the Spider-Man, for God's sakes, it probably sold way better than Yotei did in North America anyways. But the word of mouth definitely did ruin Spider-Man 2's long-term sales, because the game's story and characters were, well, you all know. I don't need to repeat it, but anyways. And you
Dude, the Emerald Apple AI account is probably a Wuma account. I don't even know what that means. That's old man brain.
also know it's not going well when even Screen Rant has articles like this one titled, Ghost of Yotei's success is real, but its record sales might be fake. Man, the gaming press is reaching so hard with this, you'd think they're pulling their arms out of their sockets, dude. The defense being placed for Yotei
I thought he was Brazilian too.
is just kind of weird, and it's extra wild that it just isn't working. And also that Park Place had another rumor, but it's fun to speculate a bit, and it's kind of interesting. So here's what that rumor said, which reads, Sony could ditch Western studios, may shift to Japanese devs and traditional stories for exclusives.
Again, let's look at who it is, and that he's not showing who wrote the article. Same writer.
Of Ghost of Yotei and Intergalactic the Heretic Prophet fail. Here's what they said. A source close to Sony.
So hold on. If Ghost of Yotei and Intergalactic Prophets fail.
Yotei and Intergalactic the Heretic Prophet fail. Here's what they said. A source close to Sony tells that Park Place that internal discussions in Japan.
So notice it's a source close to Sony and not a source in Sony. That's a thing to point out. We may think of the two. There's the blue fairy person and the emerald one. Yeah.
And suggest a major strategic reset could be coming for PlayStation's exclusive lineup. According to our source, both Ghost of Yotei from Sucker Punch and Intergalactic from Naughty Dog are being viewed as last chances for Western developers to land major exclusives under the Sony company's current direction. They continue with this. Another rumor I am also hearing is that Naughty Dog's Intergalactic and Ghost of Yotei are the last chance for these Western developers. If they fail, after that, Sony is going full focus on Japanese developers and instead go back to traditional stories and characters. They're citing China.
See, this just sounds like the Trust Me Bro AI Slop. The games are going to be a win for gamers. It's going back to the way it was with hot female gamers. Yeah, fan fiction at best.
China winning on the gaming market with Genshin Impact, Black Myth Wukong, and Wuthering Waves as a reason to change.
Hold on. I want to show something let me see if I'm still correct on this. To Black Myth Wukong, one of the most popular games that has come out in recent memory, sold 76% of its games in China. In the US, it represents 6% of sales, with the game's performance on the platform being less data-driven. Hong Kong holds a 1% share of total shares. So yeah, Hong Kong Nation makes money off of all their companies. They actually have full control of their companies if they want to. They can say, you're not making this. So it didn't do well in the US. It sold very well in China. Yeah, which way, Eastern man? So if China and all of them take over the gaming industry, they're not going to make money in the West. People didn't buy one of the most popular games of last year, the one that broke records. It broke records because the Chinese bought it. Oh, and this is horrible because usually what I've seen and what I've gone and checked on, these are pretty close together, one way or the other. Like if it's a Western game, it's going to lean more this way. If it's a Chinese game, it's going to lean more that way. But generally, if it's a well-sold game, it's going to be even. We're two of the largest markets in the world. So this idea that China is saving gaming is just absolutely fucking bullshit. Is China invested in seeing Ghost of Yotei fail? Maybe. I don't know how much control. No, I don't think Sony doesn't. Sony's pretty much exclusively controlled by Japan, right? I don't think they have a lot of other investors. You have seen like Tencent take over the gaming industry, so they're invested very much in companies failing so that they can buy more shares and eventually take over the market. Saudi Arabia is also doing the same thing because where China controls its companies, Saudi Arabia also controls its companies, right? Japanese company working to please China. Yeah. No, the developers of Black Myth Wukong were Chinese, weren't they? Woo. I thought they were Chinese. They were, yeah. Okay. So, but I mean, working to make it fail. I see what you're saying with like the bot account, possibly a Chinese account spreading bad information about the game to these anti-wokers. It's a theory. I don't know that I fully am on board with it, but I do know that these kind of bots do exist, right? It's kind of been proven in a lot of countries. We do it to other countries as well. We just don't have as much control over our media, though that has really started to change if you start to look at things.
Change.
Yeah, Twitter is full
would
of
not
them.
surprise me at all. Wuchang Fallen Feathers broke over 100,000 players on Steam alone at release, despite being made by a smaller Chinese-based game studio. Let's not forget about Black.
And they were all Chinese. 76% of them were Chinese.
Myth Wukong, which did Elden Ring numbers. It hit over 1 million players alone concurrently on Steam when that released, which was
in China.
Absolutely insane.
In fact, I want to look at that. I want to look at that and see. Elden Ring sales in US versus China. Popularity surge. Oh, and I can't actually see any data for that. Total revenue. I'll have to research that one to see if I can find any numbers on it where they actually talk about where it was sold. I know it sold a shit ton, but it did not sell a shit ton in the US. Or Elden Ring, so I would guarantee sold a shit ton in the US.
And then you have the dominance of games like Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, and more,
which is fucking just gotcha slop.
Which are all not made in the West, and based on their profits and player,
which are spinning off of their entirely Chinese market, right? Gotchas are incredibly popular in China and are spread all over that. So yes, it's incredibly popular, and I'm sure it's made its way to be popular in the US as well. Especially with the rise of microtransactions just being normalized. But you're talking like when you're comparing Chinese games to US, you have to compare what it's doing in the US, right? Because if you just go off of biggest numbers, it's going to look like China is these Chinese companies are winning all the time. Gotcha games are $1 billion industry.
Their numbers, yeah, we can tell that they aren't. And Sony, if they were smart and want to
multi-billion-dollar industry
actually make money, they got to look at the PlayStation 5 era as a cautionary tale. It has been an era for PlayStation where frankly almost all of their exclusives have done worse compared to the PS4 generation. And the underlying issue to all of these games has been the push for ideology across the board as well as ballooning budgets, let's be honest. And if Sony...
See how I had to preface it with some truth? Like, yes, I do believe a lot of it has to do with ballooning budgets. That's why they're not making money. That's why we're seeing a lot of firings in the industry. I really don't think that it's because of woke fucking nonsense. Could it? Possibly, but you got to show me some kind of proof of that. Otherwise, it's just trust me, bro.
Sony wants to compete specifically with places like Nintendo, which is their biggest competitor now, they do need to refocus themselves. Think about it. Most of Nintendo's first-party games are still unapologetically Japanese and made by Japanese developers and have way smaller budgets compared to Sony's games. Sure, you can criticize Nintendo's price increases or how they view their patents as weapons to crush smaller
Okay, here's the thing, too, when we talk about these way smaller budgets. It's hard to judge the Chinese budgets because they can kind of put out whatever they want and no one can question it. It's in China. They could have spent $400 million on Black Myth Wukong, but they don't have to say any of that, right?
devs, absolutely. However, if anything, it's very clear that's Nintendo's first-party games. They still sell. Mario Kart World sold like crazy. Donkey Kong Bonanza sold like...
Yeah, well, that's because, like, Sony or Nintendo fans are fanatic. They keep coming back to Nintendo. You're never going to, like, they raise their children to be Nintendo fans. The budgets are also lower because the game assets themselves aren't anywhere near as high quality or time consuming to create. That's another true fact too, Damage Sector.
Like Wild 2, whatever the new Mario game is for Switch 2, that's going to sell like crazy as well. And Pokemon games, no matter how little effort gets put into them, they still sell like insane amounts still. And what do they all have in common? Oh, right, they're all made by Japanese devs. Go figure. If Sony wants their games to be amazing and sell like Nintendo's do, they need to adopt the same mindset, which is to remove the agenda and focus on what matters and lower those budgets a bit. Maybe take a little thing out of Ghost of Yotei there. Lower those budgets. It works, man. It works.
I was not muted. I was just muted. What I was going to saying is, he like completely cut himself off by making a good point about the games being overblown in budget. Yeah, I do think there's some bloat. And when it comes to the graphics, like I do agree with you that graphics take an immense amount of time and money to make, which is why I'm not big on, highly graphical games. You look at this year, you've got games that came out that were beautiful, but not intense graphics. What am I trying to think of? Oh God, what's Expedition 33 is to me is a beautiful game, but like looking at the detail, it doesn't seem like it's the super high end graphics that you see with, say, Call of Duty or something else that puts a ton of it into there. But yeah, it's he just cuts his feet off by making the good point of what's probably actually happening in the industry in a lot of ways.
Although Nintendo...
Also, people are a lot less spending a lot less on games because they have less money to spend. So they don't want to buy a game that's going to be a slop game. They want to buy a game that they're going to love and be able to play. What is the average? Like people buy an average of 1 to 3 games a year. So it's like people aren't going to be spending those 1 to 3 games on something they don't think they're going to like.
Is still, slightly pushing Agenda 2. As we know, DEI is still rampant in, say, Pokemon, but Pokemon, regardless, will still...
So then what does it matter if Pokemon's a fail? If Pokemon's always a success, what did DEI do to stop that?
Sell like hotcakes. In case you don't know, Pokemon is the single biggest IP in the world. It eclipses everything around it by tens of billions of dollars in profit. Not even the Marvel Cinematic Universe can even hold a candle in profitability to Pokemon Go.
That's a terrible example. The movie industry in general can't hold a profit to the gaming industry by like any margin.
Look it up. I'm not even kidding. But Sony has lost a lot of money and credibility pushing Slop made by their Western devs who care more about this messaging than the people who buy their games. And whether you're a multi-billion-dollar company, the best bet is to still pivot and go back to what you know. Go back to what made the PS4 and the PS2 especially so profitable. There's a reason why the PS2 is still the highest selling console of all time. Sure, it's because it could play DVDs, but also because the games were Japanese made by a large margin, and that's why they sold. There was no.
But they complain about Japanese games being woke too. Like they just went after a Japanese game company, didn't they? They went after I can't remember which one, but this is not a, he just said that Pokemon's woke, but that doesn't stop Pokemon from being the top selling game, hands down. So it can't be the ideology. It can't be something like that. It's the same thing that, me personally, I think it's the same thing that we've been complaining about for games forever. Slop content gets made out when a game company goes super corporate, when it's bought out by a AAA company who only wants to milk it for content. People don't want to play, I hate to say it, people don't want to play the 12th Halo game. They don't want to play the 12th, the 7th War God of War game. It does, these names do get cold after a time. They're milked to the point that they go in there. So people are flocking towards new games, the indie scene where it's not as expensive to buy a game. You could buy Expedition 33 for $40 and things like that. It gets stale. How many times can you tell the same story or make a story a little bit different about Kratos, right?
Agenda. It was just fun games that were amazing instead of having clips like this.
One thing you also want to know is he says about fun games that were amazing. There were a lot of games out there for the PS2 that were the first in their class. So they were not stale. They were new IPs being built.
It's from Ghost of Yotei, where your woman yells and all the men are cowering in fear. Please watch this.
Spammy spirit, please! Don't hurt me! Spammy spirit!
Did you hear what she's saying there, spammy spirit? The apparent thing that they've wrote into this, from my understanding, is that she's like a well-known mercenary. So there would be some modicum of fear. As we saw in the first game, there are female protagonists that are feared, that are considered, that are samurai, that are better at their things, that Jin respected in the game, right? Yeah, Japanese, that's a good point. Japanese people are hella superstitious, and they would have been even more superstitious in this time, right?
Don't kill me! No! No!
Look, I hope
Yeah,
so.
female ownries and shit.
Too much of a lead on them, because now with Xbox pretty much.
She's also wearing the demon mask. So yeah.
Out of the race at this point, Sony has to worry about Nintendo mostly and how meteoric their success is all the time, and Ghost of Yotei is clearly not what players want at all. 1.1 million copies in a week is abysmal for a first-party game, regardless of how much it costs. Sure, it may not be a flop per se, but it's not going to exactly make you the millions either once it's all said and done. Sony needs to pivot, they need to focus, and they need to realize the reason why people buy their stuff and support them is because they are Japanese first, or at least used to be. And if they don't do that, they will run into another abysmal financial setting, so hopefully they do, but time will tell. But that's enough for one video. What do you think?
They always talk about abysmal settings and how these game companies are dying, but they're really not in most cases. Like EA is a interesting case because of how poorly their sports games have started doing, right? But outside of that, like how many times can you make an EA game? But is Sony really like on the cusp? We know Xbox is doing fucking poorly. Yeah, Microsoft, Xbox Studios, and Microsoft are definitely doing poorly when it comes to the gaming market. But I think they're trying to play some kind of long game, and they're just fucking themselves in the ass for it. So yeah, Endymion, pretty shit. But it's from Americans. Because the entire point of Sucker Punch is doing a Japanese game where they super honor the country's mythos, but it's from Americans. Yeah. So, well, yeah, it's not going to get right. I mean, the first game had superstitious things in it, so there was a semi supernatural tone to it in that, like following the fox and different things like that. Yeah, they got awards for it it was like from Japanese historian groups, wasn't it? So I don't know. I think this is completely fucking brain dead. I don't even know that it's like, is this thing hated in Japan? If Japan is loving the game, then why would they need to go back to Japanese developers if they're loving a Western company that made a good game about Japan? You know, you can look back on the past and see what we used to do when making a Japanese game or a Chinese character in a game. Look at Kamoji. Guy likes to criticize American politics, and he's doing good. Oh, Kiwajima, yeah. So it's just slop. This is just the same thing over and over again. I've said it before. I'll say it again, I'm sure. Indie just repeats the same buzzwords over and over and over again in every video. Nothing changes. Nothing is different. Nothing is new. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. I am probably going to call it a little bit early today. I don't really have time to go into another video, and I don't want to go over too much. But if you like the video, of course, like it. Helps me out. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. And I will see y'all next time come Wednesday. All right.